Hi guys, so we're on video number 3 now. If you've not seen video 1 and 2 yet, go back and look at those. But just to quickly recap, video 2 is comparing the notes of the chord that's causing you problems with the notes of the key scale. So if you're in the key of C major, which we were for all of our examples in video 2, you compare the notes of your chord to the notes of the C major scale. So for this third video, it's a very, very similar concept. We're still comparing the notes of the chord to a scale, but the scale has changed. The scale that we're using changes for each chord, and it's a root scale, i.e. if it's a C major chord, then you would be using a C major scale. If it's a D minor chord, you'd be comparing it to the D major scale. If it's a A flat half diminished, you're comparing it to the A flat major scale. So you're always comparing it to a major scale built on the root. So let's dive straight in with our examples. So the first example, I've written out the names of the chords. We're going to use the same extreme progression that we used in video number 2, so we can carry the concepts through from one video to another. So this particular example here, I've written up what it would sound like if we just played the notes of the chord against its major scale. And it's going to sound horrible. In bar 1, our C major 7 sharp 5 chord, I've written a C major scale. The D sharp diminished, I've written the D sharp major scale, which looks absolutely horrible if you write it out. Double sharps and all sorts of things going on in there. But you're going to hear it doesn't work. Now, that's not where we finished, don't worry, but I just want you to hear our starting point. The second example, I've written out on the left of the image here, I've written out the C major scale. I've put a little arrow above the note that's clashing. You can see that note's not working with the chord. On the right hand side, bar 2, we've made the appropriate change. The reason the G wasn't working is because the chord has a G sharp in it. So we've raised it up to a G sharp. Second example here, D sharp diminished. The reason this scale isn't working over the D sharp diminished chord is because we've got an F double sharp, an A sharp, and a C double sharp. So we've changed it to an F sharp, an A, and a C. Those notes there are in brackets because we've got a B sharp and a C, which are enharmonic equivalents, they're the same note. Don't worry about that for now, that's going to happen every now and again in this method, it's no problem. Third slide here, E flat major 7 sharp 5. So I've written out on the left the E flat major scale, which again we heard it doesn't work. The note that clashes is the B flat. The chord has a B natural in it. So all we do is change that one note. The chord always wins. And finally the C7 chord here. The B natural of the C major scale is going to be clashing with that B flat of the C7. Again, it's these two notes with an arrow above them. So all we do is flatten the B natural. Now I've written out here an example of what this is going to sound like. Before we heard how terrible it sounded when we just play the major scales, I'm going to play that again now just so you can really hear the comparison. And now here is the sound when we use modified scales. So these are almost major scales built on the root of the chord, C major, D sharp major, E flat major, and C major. We make the bare minimum adjustments, and that's dictated by the notes of the chord. So that's the second part of this method. Again, we're not quite there yet when we're trying to get these outside jazzy sounds, but you can already hear how these scales are sounding a little bit weirder than method 1 did. The next step is where we really start to sound like what my big brother calls a dirty jazz monster. Practice these ideas, get your pen and paper out, write them down. It's always the case that the chord wins. You've got two scales you're comparing against now. The chord is compared against the key scale, so you need to know what key your piece of music as a whole is in. And now, the new method is you compare the notes of the chord to whatever the root of the chord is, C, D sharp, E flat, C7, it could be anything, it's going to change from bar to bar, that major scale. So in the next video, we're going to really see how we can start to blend all this stuff together and sound like we know what we're doing. See you then. Cheers.